Well, partner, we blinked and now the month of June is coming to a close. So this is our final episode of the month of June. We're under a month away from the start of Ravens training camp. So here we go. Welcome into the vault. I'm Bobby Trossett, joined as always by my co-host, Sarah Ellison. And before we dive into this episode, we wanted to shout out and thank two of our returning patrons who are supporting both of us, both of the channel, the audio only podcast that we do, everything that we do on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, and we just wanted to show our appreciation. So shout out Kurt Pfeiffer, shout out Jameson Helfrich. We appreciate both of you guys. And if you are out there interested in supporting us as well, and you want to check out what we're offering, you can do so by visiting patreon.com/Ravens Vault podcast. Okay. The Athletic's Jeff Zrebiec, as you've probably already heard since we've teased him and our interview coming up next week multiple times already, has given us tons of information. We have a 50-plus minute conversation coming up next week. It'll be released after July 4th, so be on the lookout for that. But Sarah, there were so many different avenues that we felt like we could take after catching up with Jeff that we wanted to do so again today with J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, so obviously that's probably between JK and Kevin Zeitler. It sounds like those two are looking for new contracts. And while we know that they're looking for new contracts, JK didn't quite, confirm with WJZ that he held out or held in, I should say. He didn't confirm that he held in because of the contract, but Ian Rappaport told us that is indeed what was going on. And so what I wanted to ask Jeff is, what exactly is J.K. Dobbins looking for? We know he wants a new contract, but what's the number he's asking for that maybe he's not getting back from the Ravens?
Without any question, there's been sorts of frustration with him on a couple things. That he was on the field in the preseason when he tore his ACL. Some of the decision not to get the ball in certain spots. What is his? I think it's 18 carries is his career high in a game, and that's only once. And not getting the ball, he feels like he's being held back. And there was some difference of opinion with the injury last year and getting the scope where he eventually came back from. So I think all that stuff's building, and then you throw that with his contract situation this year, kind of being a lame duck guy, their number 2 and number 3 running back making more money than him. And that just kind of all added to it. I don't want to speak for J.K. Dobbins. I do think the Ravens would be willing to talk about kind of a short-term deal, right? I don't think, but I don't blame the Ravens here. I think you still need to see where he is. Last year, he didn't look hell. I mean, J.K. was the first to admit he didn't have that final gear that he's going to need to have to, J.K. Dobbins, a healthy J.K. Dobbins wouldn't have gotten caught from behind like he did a couple times last year. It was understandable. I mean, he played his butt off. He played hard. He broke tackles. Even some, you look at, the one catch he made in the flat against the Bengals in the playoff game and what he turned that into. He played so hard, but he just wasn't 100%. He did, and I don't blame the Ravens for wanting to see more before they, invest. It's not the Ravens' fault, really, what the running back market has become.
And as we've touched on in recent days, right, like the running back market has become, and actually we're going to be talking about this in next week's mailbag. The running back market, just like it's okay, you can't hold a candle to the wide receiver market, obviously, but it's in flux. And so it puts the Ravens in a difficult situation, monetarily speaking, knowing, and this is kind of what Jeff was getting at, knowing some of the injury history that's come with JK over the last couple of years.
Well, when one position, when you have a salary cap and there's one position that is growing in terms of taking up the salary cap hit, if it's growing faster than what the salary cap is growing, then another position is going to suffer. And quarterbacks and wide receivers have been growing through the roof. So there's bound to be another position to suffer, and running back is one of them. Bobby, can I get into these numbers now about Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, or did you have one more soundbite you wanted to get to before I jump into all that?
We do have one more clip of Jeff, but I think it's just a separate part of the conversation, kind of comparing JK's situation to Patrick Queen. So why don't we go there first, and then we'll go to Jeff's after you bring these numbers forward.
Okay, so he said it didn't occur to me that one of the things that might be frustrating J.K. Dobbins was that Gus Edwards and Justice Hill was making more than him. I thought it was just more like he was ready to get paid early and wanted to be like a top paid running back. So I went in and I was like, okay, well, and then Jeff said he thinks that the Ravens would be willing to look at a short-term deal. So if J.K. Dobbins is dead set on getting a deal right now, it would have to be in the Gus Edwards range, in my opinion. So Gus Edwards, when he signed his deal, it was 2 years for $9 million. So it was an average salary of $4.5 million. Okay, so that's where he's at. He also brought up Justice Hill. Obviously not as productive as Gus Edwards, does a lot more special teams. He signed a 2-year deal worth 4.5. So Justice Hill has an annual average of 2.25 million per year. So he's basically half of what Gus Edwards makes. Now, J.K. Dobbins, obviously on a rookie deal, drafted in the second round. So it's not like, so this is a rookie slot. This has nothing to do whether you're a running back or some other position. This has to do with his slot position of when he was drafted. I believe he was in the 40s, early 40s. His average annual salary is 1.4 million. So that is, I don't know, about 800,000 less than Justice Hill. So now Hill, because he just re-signed, he is also getting a signing bonus. So Hill is actually going to get a little over 2 million this year, whereas Dobbins will get about 1.3 million this year. Okay. So if you're looking at production, all that kind of stuff, yeah, you could certainly argue J.K. Dobbins deserves more than Justice Hill. But you have to remember, Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, Gus Edwards was an undrafted rookie. So he went through his whole rookie contract at far less than J.K. Dobbins. And Justice Hill, he went through his rookie deal and he was drafted later than Dobbins. So he was making less when he was a rookie. So, does Dobbins have a point? Yes, but at the same time, this isn't like, it's usually quarterbacks or like a superstar like Chase, right? Chase over at the Bengals, who are like, okay, I want to get re-signed now, and I want to be re-signed now at the top of the market, and so that's what you do. You do that for guys like Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts. You do it for those type of guys. I don't know that you're really doing that for running backs. You know what I mean? And so you're definitely not doing it for running backs that are coming off of a 2-year impacted injury. And so like, maybe if they're, to me, okay, if I'm the Ravens, this would make sense. Sure, let's do like a 3-year deal where you're above Gus Edwards. So you're getting about $5 million a year and you're not getting what the top running backs get, which is most of the guys are in that $12 million range. Yeah, so Ravens are like, all right, we'll give you this extra money, even though you haven't produced, because we believe in you. But if J.K. Dobbins wants more than that, he's going to have to do what Jeff says in your next quote, which is go the Patrick Queen route and bet on yourself to make more.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we had kind of drawn that comparison, got to be weeks ago at this point, right? When PQ showed up and kind of just put his best foot forward, both on the field and also during his media obligations, and took the high road and basically said that he's here to compete and similarly to what we saw from Chuck Clark last year, probably actually less drama than what we saw last year from Chuck, because Chuck actually started talking about the trade request and opening up about that during his media availability. Anyway, here's part 2 of that snippet of Jeff on J.K. Dobbins and the comparison now to PQ.
It's not easy to be a running back, but I think it's a frustrating thing when you add all that stuff up for J.K. and where he is. And, I kind of wrote this, but there was some frustration with Patrick Queen too this offseason.
Yeah.
And I think when he realized his best chance to get a big payday was to play his butt off and have the best season of his career, he's in a great situation to do that with arguably the best middle linebacker in football next to him, a defense that knows, a defensive coordinator and a defense that knows how to play to Patrick Queen's strengths. He looks great. I think he's in great position to make himself some money this year. You know, you never know about health and all that, but I think JK is probably going to come to that same realization that, you know, my best, just go out there. I think, you know, let's hope they've heeded his advice from that after that playoff game and get him the ball in key situations because he's one of their top playmakers. And I think if they do that and JK stays healthy, he's going to have a really, really good year. Monken loves throwing to his backs. I think that'll give JK an opportunity to showcase more of his game. I think things are definitely looking up there. But, yeah, JK's an emotional guy, and there's no doubt there's some kind of frustration that's been building over the last couple of years that I think we've seen on display, you know, in the last 7-8 months and in a couple instances where it's on Twitter in the locker room after game.
I kind of laughed there because he said, you know, let's hope they heed his advice. I loved how he used the word advice. JK sounding off on the coaching staff after the Bengals game, you know, and it just got me thinking, like, there really have been, and he mentioned a few of these in the first clip, there have been so many examples over the last few years that have just left JK in this almost like it's like a perpetual stage of frustration. You know, whether it was the decision to play him on that, you know, fateful day in Landover at FedEx Field in a preseason game, or just his usage in general. The fact that he kind of had to, it was a running back by committee rookie season for him with Mark Ingram and Gus, and gosh, even Justice was there. You know, there was a bunch of different rotating pieces then. And then, of course, the usage has been a problem for him in his mind pretty much every single season. But then you have the fact that he has the game taken away from him for the torn ACL. Then last year, it's the hitch and the giddy up and the scope that's required. And he gets back from the scope and, oh, wait a second, he doesn't have his burst. He doesn't have his acceleration yet he's still putting up numbers. But usage, again, and situational usage or lack thereof is frustrating, ultimately leading to the blow up that we mentioned. So it really has been a string of unfortunate circumstances for JK that I feel like perpetual frustration. That's just something I stumbled upon right now off the cuff. But that's where I feel like JK's been throughout his time in Baltimore. And I wonder where that leaves him gearing up for a big year, obviously, needless to say.
I think that's a really good word for it. I mean, perpetually frustrated. I mean, it's got to be. I mean, comes in his rookie year. He has a great rookie year, even while sharing the load with Mark Ingram. I thought that 2020 year, it's like, all right, the Ravens moved on from Mark Ingram. They're giving it, they're giving it to J.K. Dobbins. And then, yeah, I mean, he could be upset that John Harbaugh chose to play him. I still remember, Harbaugh on the sideline talking to Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson after it happened, like he was still on the bench with them. He's just like, oh my gosh. He's like, I just wanted to get one series with all the starters. I just want to get one series, and both Lamar and Mark are like, you can't think of it that way, coach. We wanted it too. This is football, da 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 da. Meanwhile, JK, I'm sure, is not like, he's like, yeah, no, you shouldn't have put me in, and it's obviously, so you got that. And then, so he's probably frustrated with that decision. Although I don't know if at the time, if he was like, yeah, coach, let's do it for a series, or if he was like, no, I don't want to do it. I mean, obviously afterwards he's going to be upset and frustrated by it. And then, and I agree with him that Tyler Huntley fumble, he was like, it shouldn't even have been in Tyler's hands. Like, why aren't you giving me the ball? And I agree in that situation. The only thing last year at that point that was bringing J.K. Dobbins, the part that he wasn't 100% was his sixth year once he broke through the line. But when you're in the red zone, when you're one yard away, that doesn't matter. I mean, he had what he needed to have to maybe get the ball in that situation. So to your point, my heart goes out to him. Like, it just has got to feel like 3 years in, I have nowhere close to touched my potential. Nowhere close. And then at the same time, from J.K. Dobbins' point of view, it's like, because of that, because I was injured in a preseason game, I want more insurance than the $1 million or so that I'm getting in this final year. So I 1000%, if I were him, I would also be approaching the Ravens and being like, what can we do here? Now, from the Ravens' point of view, I'd be like, okay, from our point of view, we don't do the bell cow approach.
Yeah.
Most guys that are being paid $12 million are bell cows. Bell cow to the point that you can even expect, because some of those places are still pass first. We don't do the bell cow approach. We have Lamar Jackson, and whether you want to like say it was John Harbaugh's fault or not that you got injured, the fact is that you have been injured. And so how could the Ravens justify giving him a huge new deal that puts him in the top 10? So that's why I agree with Jeff, where it's like JK is going to have to come to the realization that either he gets a Gus Edwards type deal, 2 years, maybe around 5 million, maybe 6 at, or do you come to the Patrick Queen realization and say, you know what? I'm in the best position I can be in to rush for 1,000 yards. Ingram did it even with the ball being spread around in 2019. I'm healthy. And if I do this, if I can get through this season, I'll get way more than 5 or 6 million, and I'll get more long-term. I can get more guaranteed money, all of it. And so as frustrating as it is, if I were in JK's spot, if I was only going to be offered a JK or a Gus Edwards type deal, maybe a little bit better than that, as rough as it's been the last 2 years, I think I would bet on myself and be like, here we go. I'm going to go for the long-term contract.
Yeah. It's the harsh reality of like the running back market right now is that these guys are looked at. I'm just talking about from a business side. I mean this with all due respect to JK, the competitor, JK, the running back, JK, the heart, the grit, everything he's brought to the NFL. But these guys are a dime a dozen in this market, and so from, if I'm making decisions business wise as Eric DeCosta or anybody within the front office, I know these guys have heart and they love these guys and they've drafted them. They used second round draft capital on JK and stunned the world, right? It was like somewhere in the 50s, I want to say 50 or 55, somewhere around that. I mean, nobody saw that coming. But unfortunately, they are looked at as a dime a dozen. So we'll see. I don't know if there's a more fascinating story to watch unfold aside from obviously continuing to watch how Lamar installs this new offense and how Odell looks and, the new pieces, then how J.K. Dobbins is going to handle this. The last time that we covered J.K. Dobbins in a morning vault, it was Ian Rappaport confirming what we already believed to be true, and that's J.K. is a hold-in. He was a hold-in during mandatory minicamp. And while, he was dealing with some soft tissue setback, that was basically a decision not to show up to not to participate in mandatory minicamp, not out of health concerns, but out of contractual concerns. So I think that's something to monitor as we get ready for training camp. All right, let's shift gears and talk a little bit about something that's come across our desk in the last couple of days, and that is the debate. Who is the best new addition? Who will become the best new addition for the 2023 Ravens? Who you got?
Well, here's what's funny. If we did this last year in 2022, we wouldn't have even been able to predict who the best one was because it was Roquan Smith. So obviously we have to leave open that there could be a midseason trade, or right now there could still be new signings before training camp or during training camp and all of that. So this is kind of the list that I think that we have to work from. All right. So just to put it in fans' minds as they kind of think through it with us, who they think it might be. So the first was Todd Monken. I'm going to put a coach in the list. Odell Beckham Jr., Zay Flowers, Nelson Aguilar. Okay. And then I've only got one defensive addition because they really haven't had to do too much there yet. I still think the signings for defense is coming. So we have on defense, Rock Yassin. So I'm going to go with Todd Monken. I think that Todd Monken will for sure have the biggest impact one way or the other. Either this offense, is going to become what we hope it's going to become, which is more balanced and unlock the passing game a little bit more and marry it, better with the rushing attack. But I also feel like, hopefully he's going to, unlock everything, unlock who Lamar is who we all think he can become, who people have been complaining about, that he's not just a rushing quarterback. He's more of a legit passer, even though, again, he led the league in passing touchdowns in 2019. So that's, how can you not have a bigger impact than that? So, and then if he doesn't unlock any of that, then he'll still impact the offense big time. So I think he'll have the biggest impact. I also think, I don't know that the Ravens sign Odell Beckham Jr. with Greg Roman still being the leader. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's why I put Todd Monken ahead of him, because I think that Todd was a key in getting OBJ. Obviously, Lamar's a key, but I also think that Todd Monken was a key in, I think it's a domino effect, right? Todd Monken helps get OBJ here, and OBJ helps get Lamar here. And Lamar also probably like the new offensive coordinator. So that's why I think, I don't even know that you bring in the other guys without Todd Monken.
That's hard to argue against. I was going to go with Odell from the sense that I didn't necessarily look at it as like a trickle down effect, but I think that makes a whole lot of sense. Chronologically speaking, throughout the offseason, they kind of meticulously went about this. They went from being looked at as like, what are they doing this offseason? One of the worst off seasons in the history of the franchise, to like, wow, this actually may have been the best out of the 26, 27 years that it's been, that the organization's been around. But I just, for the sake of variety, I'll go with Odell because, I think from you want to talk about what he's going to do on the field. I feel like we've covered this, extensively recently, whether it's just being that extension of Mark Andrews, a lifeline for Lamar when they need, 7, they need 8 yards on third down, trying to close out a game, trying to come back, in the fourth quarter, you name it. I think he's going to be a great source, and a great crutch for Lamar. I saw recently, actually, just earlier this week, that Zay and Lamar look to be in South Florida together. So perhaps with OBJ being down there, I think he has a Fanatics commitment. He and Michael Rubin are super close, the Fanatics CEO, and he was the one that actually we did a episode on, or at least we covered it at one point, his jersey sales being through the roof. That was through Fanatics measurements. Anyway, Fanatics is having an event down at Miami, in Miami this week. And DJ Khaled, as we covered, and OBJ were spending some time together. So I would imagine that they're all working together at some point this week or in the coming weeks down in Miami. So anyway, with all that said, I think OBJ's brand only lifts the Ravens brand as well. And I think while it will come with media scrutiny and attention, and I'm sure like this overwhelming commitment to following every single move the Ravens make this year, I think it really lifts the excitement and lifts the expectation. So from that sense, the Ravens are in the national spotlight, and they have been obviously for Lamar over the last couple of years with the contract dispute. But now it's on a whole new level, and I think that's exciting for Baltimore, being that it's not a top tier market like the New Yorks and the LAs and the Dallases in the football world. So to me, from even if we want to talk like economically speaking, I find that, especially as content creators, I find that exciting for us, because there's going to be an attention span through the roof on this team, and from an interest standpoint, that fires me up from what OBJ is going to bring.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree from like eyeballs and attention and jersey sales, all of that. Like OBJ will have a big impact. Obviously, I'm thinking more on impact on the field. And for OBJ, for me, I almost don't even care what he does during the regular season. I mean, I don't want him to get hurt, and I want him to have, I want him to be available. But to me, the impact that you need from OBJ is come December, come January, come February. Like, to me, it's like that's what the Ravens need. They've been able to make it to the playoffs as long as Lamar is healthy by running the ball. But once they hit the playoffs and these defensive coordinators with better defenses. I mean, you're assuming that the defenses that make it to the playoffs, they're some of the better defenses, or you have a phenomenal offense in KC. But you can't go in being a one-trick pony in the postseason like you might get away with during the regular season. And so to me, that's what OBJ's here for. He's like, help us get over the top in the playoffs. And I'll just add really quick, while I am putting Todd Monken ahead, and maybe if OBJ makes that difference in the playoffs, I almost might put Rocky Ya-Sin above OBJ. Again, regular season wise, because Rocky Ya-Sin, he's going to be out there. He's going to be, I think, 100% snap guy or close to it, 90, 95%, 100. And so he's taken over that Marcus Peters role, and the Ravens are going to need him. The Ravens are going to need him to be solid. He doesn't need to be out of this world, but they need him to be solid to just make sure that defense can be good. So we'll see, but I think Rocky Ya-Sin could be in the conversation with OBJ for sure.
I think that's a great point to finish on there, because after Marlon and Rock, we've already addressed the well-documented questions about the rest of that cornerback room. And, we talked about it in the mailbag coming up next week as well. Like, who is going to be cornerback 3? I think we both believe there's a chance that he may not be on the roster right now, but you'll have to find more on that conversation coming up in next week's mailbag. Let's finish here. This is an interesting question that's been posed. Where the heck are last year's sacks? The sack production from guys who are not currently on the roster or elsewhere, in Calais Campbell's case. Where is last year's sack production that those guys contributed to? Where is that going to come from? Justin Houston had a team-leading 9.5 sacks. Fountain of youth. We've said it a million times last year. Calais Campbell since departed. And by the way, Justin's still on the free agent market, open and available. Calais in Atlanta now, left in free agency. 5.5 sacks. That tied for second on the team with Justin Zrebiec. Where is this production going to come from? I don't know. David Ojabo, for all intents and purposes, this is his rookie season. To expect him to come flying out of the gates, still probably, he's post-rehab at this point, but he's not all that far removed from last year's torn Achilles. To expect him to come out and fire double-digit sacks, to me, would be certainly an optimistic approach to looking at, their pass rush next year. To me, the easy way here before camp, before we really know what they're working with, is that it's going to be a sack production by committee. That's what I go to first. How about you?
Yeah, so I agree. I mean, David Ojabo, you can't just say, okay, Justin Houston's 9.5 sacks is going to go to what's essentially a rookie in David Ojabo. And if he did that, oh my gosh, we'd be dancing in the streets of Baltimore, right? If he got 9.5 and what's essentially his rookie year. So I don't know, what's realistic for David Ojabo? 5 or 6? 6?
That's what I was thinking. I think it'd be a good, if we were doing over-unders or whatever, that would be, I think 5.5, 6 would be a good fair number.
Well, and I think that Odafe Owe, he had 3 last year. He's got to get home more often. He's always been like so close yet so far away. He's got to finish. I mean, he'd have to come up with at least 6. Now remember, Calais Campbell, his 5.5, that was tied with Justin Zrebiec. And so I don't know. Can you expect more than 5.5 from Zrebiec? I feel like that's a solid number. So I don't know that he's certainly not going to double it to make up for Calais Campbell. You've got Travis Jones. He's going to be relied upon more often to help make up for those Calais Campbell sacks. Broderick Washington kind of in there. Brent Urban, might have to do some stuff. So, so I'm especially interested in what Travis Jones could bring, for sure. And then, to be honest, I just want to re-sign Justin Houston. And, I'm not expecting him, but if he came back and provided another 5 instead of the 9.5, then between him and Ojabo, you can make up the rest of those. But I would still like to see the Ravens whether it's Houston, JPP, who else is out? I just feel like they need to sign another veteran, because if these two young guys in Odafe Owe and Ojabo, if they're not, pushing their numbers high up and getting this type of production, then you are going to need a veteran, whether it's Justin Houston, JPP. Who else is on the market? I know there's like several guys out there still.
Clowney, Jadeveon Clowney's still out there.
Jadeveon Clowney. So, so I would still like to see them add another veteran to help come up with some of these sacks. But I think it just isn't like easy math. You can't just say, okay, you know what I mean? And so that's actually, I know we're talking a lot about corner, but I'm still a little bit nervous. I'm still a little bit nervous about where these sacks are going to come from, because when you think of the defense, I think of Roquan and Patrick Queen, solid right there. I think of Kyle Hamilton and
Marcus.
Yes. So you're like, okay, solid, but we got to rush the passer here. Those guys can't be covering forever. We got to rush the passer. And so this is a legit, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's like alarm levels, but I think this is something that we need to keep an eye on. And just to make me feel more comfortable, I'd like them to re-sign a Justin Houston type guy.
I'm totally with you. Yeah. And I think Tyus Bowser can probably be relied upon for several as well. But to think that, I would say, who you singled out, Travis Jones, aside from David Ojabo, I would say Travis is the most intriguing for what kind of step he can take in year 2. But I'm not comfortable in singling one guy out specifically. It doesn't sound like you are either. That's going to be, the double-digit guy. I don't know if they need a double-digit guy. It sure would be awesome to see somebody emerge as that guy. But if they come in bunches and if 3, 4, 5, 6 guys can, record anywhere between 4 and 6 throughout the season, then, maybe that'll justify not having, your surefire guy that's going to be in that double-digit category. So cornerback depth and who's going to be, the premier pass rusher and get home to the quarterback are 2 questions that are definitely going to be at the top of mind going into the season.
And in a training camp. And just as a quick note, Tyus Bowser, he was injured a bit, but he only had 2 sacks last year. He is more of a coverage guy. He drops back in coverage, but I would like to see him bring that number up and maybe hit 5 himself.
Yeah. He has been banged up and he's not getting any younger, but it'd be nice to see him, because you're right. He's versatile and they do have him dropping back, which is crazy when you look at his size, but it just speaks to his versatility. So with that, we are closing down the month of June, and we appreciate you for rocking with us during what was, I would say, relatively slow month. I mean, there was some content out there, but considering what the rest of the off season's been, it felt slow. So I know we're excited to get some R&R, some time with family, a little bit of travels under our belts here in the next week or so. We will have content coming up the week of July 4th. There's going to be at least 3 episodes, so be on the lookout for those. And then we'll be back, obviously in daily format, ready to rip Monday, July 10th. And at that point, we'll just be a couple weeks out from the start of training camp. So as always, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at BaltimoreRavensVault@gmail.com. Check out what we're offering on Patreon by visiting patreon.com/RavensVault podcast. You can find all that information in the description of this podcast, in the description of this YouTube video, wherever you're watching from, wherever you're listening from. And as always, we would love to hear more from you, feedback-wise, whether that is dropping a rating or review wherever you listen to the show, whether that's just simply subscribing to our YouTube channel, hitting that little notification bell underneath the video so you're notified when we drop our episodes. All these little things help us. And hopefully, if you're going to help us, we want to help you as well. We're going to help you regardless. We'd love for you to help us as well. But all right, partner, let's head off into vacation. I'm looking forward to it. I know you are as well. I hope you have a great time with your family, and you and I will catch up, I'm sure. I mean, come on, we're still going to be talking over the 4th and stuff, but can't go multiple days without seeing you or talking to you. Well, I've never even met you in person. Hopefully we get that done at some point this summer, but I hope you and the family have a great 4th.
Same to you, Bobby. I'm sure we'll be texting, but it's going to be weird not talking several hours every day. So enjoy it. I know you deserve some time off. I've already had a couple vacations. I know this will be your first big one.
Hey, you do the same. I'm looking forward to it. You know, I'm going to get you back bye week. I already got my flights booked to Rome to visit the bro, so it'll be good. And we just wanted to thank you guys and have a great holiday week with you and yours. So for my partner Sarah Ellison, I'm Bobby Trossett signing off from this Friday morning Vault edition. June is now over. July is forthcoming, and we can't wait to spend it with you.